The Tao of Self-Confidence, episode 940. Welcome to the Tao of Self-Confidence, where I share stories of amazing women who have discovered their inner journey to self-confidence. Visit our website at thetaoofselfconfidence.com. Your inner journey to self-confidence awaits. If you're tired of being the best-kept secret in your industry, listen up. You don't need to be louder, you need to be seen. Grab my free Visible Framework Toolkit, the exact steps I use to go from overlooked to being the go-to expert people turn to for impact and insight. Download it now at thetaoofselfconfidence.com. Well, hello, friend. Welcome to the Tao of Self-Confidence, where I share stories of amazing women who have discovered their inner journey to self-confidence. I'm your host today, Sheena Yap Chan, and today I have a phenomenal lady on the show today. She is the executive director at interTrend Communications and also the president of 3AF, which is the Asian American Advertising Federation. And I'm super excited to have her on and share her story with us on self-confidence. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to Cheryl Lee. Hi, Cheryl. How are you today? Maybe you can fill in a little bit more about yourself to the listeners.
Yeah, thank you, Sheena. I just remember we connect a couple years before, and right now have a chance full circle and join your podcast. Definitely feel honored and pleased to be here. And Sheena, thank you for your quick intro. To give a little bit more context, interTrend is a multicultural Asian American full service marketing agency. So where I focus on connecting cultural intelligence with data-driven media strategy. I've spent over 20 years in advertising across global and the U.S. market. And in the line of my work, really just to helping brand to understand the culture isn't a niche. It's a growth driver. At the same time, and like Sheena, you mentioned, I was elected as the president since last year for 3AF. And 3AF is where I focus on elevating the role of Asian American marketing in shaping culture, creativity, and the business impact.
I love that, and thanks so much for sharing that. I think it's so important to showcase that, especially in Asian culture. We're not taught to be creative, to put ourselves out there. So the work that you do and having 3AF is so important, especially now more than ever, as we keep increasing our visibility, our representation. So I really love what you're doing. And Cheryl, what's your cultural background?
I actually was born and raised in Taiwan. I moved to US actually initially just for my graduate degree at the USC and didn't have really planned to stay here for good, but I actually got a stumble into multicultural marketing. And very quickly, I realized that was something I could do by leaning into my own identity and live experience, which is a wonderful thing. And I always joke around, it's such a luxury. I can do marketing, what I've been learning from school, but at the same time, owning my identity as part of marketing like school weapon. I'm bilingual, I'm bicultural for the long run. I feel like I was in between the worlds, not fully one or the other. Especially early in my career, there were moments I wasn't sure how much myself can bring into the room. Do I adapt? Do I speak up? Do I wait? I remember being in a meeting where I was observed more than I speak. I was reading the room and trying to understand the dynamic, making sure what I say was fully thought through before I can say it. But I think a lot of this come from navigating different culture. You become very aware, very perceptive, and sometimes you unconsciously holding yourself back. So over time, though, I kind of realized the ability to observe, adapt and translate across perspective. It's actually my superpower. And it's what allows me to connect different teams, bridging data, creativity, help brand to show up in a way culturally meaningful and beyond just transactional. And today, I'll have to say, because my background, bicultural, bilingual, with the social media and digital platform connects to Asia, feel even closer. It's no longer distant. My dual identity can coexist and in a way amplify each other. So being Asian American has really shaped how I see the world and also why I care deeply about representation. Not just being seen, but being understood in a meaningful and authentic way.
I love that, and especially since May is Asian API Heritage Month, this is such an important topic, and it's such an important message that'll go beyond the month of May. So I love that you mentioned that. And Cheryl, what would be your favorite self-confidence quote?
It's an interesting question because self-confident, because oftentimes I think as an Asian female, we're looking confidence externally. We constantly want validation, confirmation, and that kind of shows through maybe the upbringing when we were growing up in a family, in the school, expectation to meet everything at work. So when I think about that, I thought of an author, Brene Brown. I think she wrote a book called Dare to Lead and talk about vulnerability is having the courage to show up and be seen, even though when you cannot control the outcome. I feel that really, really important because, for a long time, it was the hardest because you thought confidence is fully prepared and having all the answer because maybe that's a perfectionist, maybe it's the Asian standard. But what I learned, the real confidence actually come from being willing to speak up, even when you are not 100% ready. So owning your own story and loving yourself through the process is the bravest thing that we can ever do. So that will be my self-confidence quote.
I love that, and it's so important, especially we're not taught to be vulnerable. Again, in Asian culture, we're basically taught to have no emotions, and it is important to share the good, bad, the ugly. Being vulnerable, it could be your greatest strength. It's not a liability. So I love that quote that you mentioned. And in your own words, how do you define self-confidence?
I think for me, self-confidence isn't about being the loudest person in the room or having all the answer. I think it's typical. I think, again, I want to go back my upbringing. You want to be so well prepared, show up 100%, but it's really about trusting your perspective, even when it's different and having the courage to share it. I think confidence is deeply tied to clarity, knowing what you stand for, understand what you bring to the table, not needing constant validation to prove it. I will be honest, this kind of confidence is not something you just have it. It evolves. And there are still moments I will have doubts. I need to also learn, relearn, and try to regain the confidence. But the difference is now is the doubt never stop me the way it used to.
I love that. And thanks for sharing that great definition. I think it's so important to be able to show up, be who we are. It doesn't have to be loud. We could still be an introvert and still be confident, right? It's all about showing up as our authentic self. And I think there's no better time than now to be really authentic with the rise of AI, people looking for more human connection and more authenticity. So I really love that definition that you mentioned. And Cheryl, what was your life like before you discovered self-confidence?
Like I mentioned a little bit, I definitely think as a immigrant, first generation immigrant coming here, English is not my first language. So of course you have to adapt and learn and navigate through. I spent a lot of time just trying to prove myself. Like I would do it. I would probably do above and beyond. I feel the confidence is having all the answer. I'm going to stay later than anyone. I'm going to do everything I can. I'm going to give not only 100%, 120%. I want to get everything right. And I want to make no mistake in a lot of ways. But when I put a lot of pressure on myself to meet expectation, sometimes even unspoken one, I actually would prepare a lot before the meeting. And I would hesitate to speak because maybe not my first language. I feel like I definitely should wait. There's sort of the social expectation among Asian culture. I remember after meeting, I would even replay the conversation in my head and thinking, oh, I could have said better or differently. And then you kind of go in the rabbit hole, question yourself, doubt yourself. And there was always this underlining feeling I had to earn my seat at the table. And when you operate that way, you can absolutely be successful on paper, but you're not fully owning your voice. So looking back now, I think what's, the common phrase we always say, imposter syndrome, look like to me. Maybe that's really kind of underlining my mindset, but it's not I wasn't capable. It was just I hadn't fully recognized the value, my own perspective yet.
I love that. Thanks for sharing that you're able to share something like this because again, we tend to be our own worst critic, be our own worst enemy. We think we're not good enough or there's someone better out there, even though we're more than capable, we're 110% capable, something still holds us back, right? And in our upbringing, especially for Asian women, we've always been taught to never make any noise, do as you're told, stay in the background. So that also contributes to it. And what was that point when you realized you were more than enough to go out there, especially being in advertising, being in marketing? And I love that you mentioned having multicultural marketing, being able to use, our community, our upbringing and put it into marketing to help out, be seen, have representation. What was that aha moment that just gave you that first step to do it?
I feel aha moment, it's really hard. I really do believe it's a gradual realization, little small step you do. I start noticing the value I was bringing wasn't just in execution. It actually was my perspective. The way I connect the dot across the team, the way I understand the cultural nuances, the way I build a relationship, those were not just supporting skills. They were actually differentiator. So I remember getting feedback at one point where someone point out what came naturally to me didn't come naturally to someone else. And that really stayed with me because I think sometimes the things we do effortlessly, we don't always recognize as valuable. And once I embrace that, something shift. I stopped trying to fit into what I thought leadership should look like and start defining it my own way. And that's what I can become more decisive, more vocal, more intentional how I show up.
I love that you mentioned, your perspective matters, your perspective has value because especially as women, we always think our story doesn't matter. Who are we going to create an impact for? But every one of our stories matter and every one of our specific stories matter because I've always been told that, oh, your story's too specific. We don't understand it. But in order to have new ideas, new solutions, it is important to share our specific stories, especially in the month of May, where we highlight the stories and contributions of AAPI culture. And it's important to go beyond that, right? Beyond May, because we're Asian every day. And so I love that you mentioned that. And because of that realization, what's your life been like now?
I think I operate with a lot more clarity and ease. I will say I'm still learning. I'm still growing, but I don't question my value in the same way. I focus more on impact than approval. I speak earlier in conversation, even my thought aren't perfectly formed yet. I trust my perspective add value. And I also feel a strong sense of responsibility, not just for myself, but for others, especially for the next generation of a lot of diverse female leaders who might feel the same way I did earlier in my career. I think confidence become more meaningful when you use it to create a space for others, not just for yourself.
I love that. And, to the woman who's listening to your episode, she may be in her own journey to self-confidence. What would be that one tip you'd give to her?
I will say few things because I say don't wait until you feel ready. Again, I feel like a lot of time you're waiting for the moment. Again, the big moment you feel like can turn around everything. But honestly, it never really comes. The confidence is built through small action, not before it. And second, I would say your differences are your advantage. Owning it. What makes you feel like an outsider is often what gives you a unique perspective, like others don't. Leaning on that. And then find your voice and define your value because confidence comes much stronger when it anchors in what you stand for. And there is a value to it. And lastly, confidence is not a destination. It's something you build. You might lose it. And you rebuild over time, and that's completely normal. I think we oftentimes think that's a destination, you either have it or not, but kind of shift your mindset. It's a sort of a journey, like you say, self-confidence journey. I do think it's very important to remind each one of ourselves and also pat your shoulder. Sometimes you need to give yourself room for mistake because when you're making mistake, you're actually learning from there.
I love all the tips that you mentioned. I wish, I had these tips when I was a lot younger. Of course, being an Asian culture, we're always taught to be perfect, never make any noise, never make mistakes. But yeah, I love that you mentioned you just start before you're ready. Just say yes. Like in my book, Bridging the Confidence Gap, I talk about, the strategy of ready, fire, aim. Like literally start before you're ready, take action and course correct as you go. And that's how we do create results, by making mistakes, by pivoting, by figuring things out along the way. So I love everything that you mentioned. And if our listeners wanted to get to know a little bit more about you and what you do, is there any links or social media profiles we can connect with?
Definitely. I think, first of all, you can find me on LinkedIn. Cheryl Lee, you can type my name, company, interTrend. You can find me. I love to connect. If any of the things I share impact you, connect with you, I'm more than happy to, share more. I also will encourage everyone to check out the nonprofit organization I right now serve for, 3F, Asian American Advertising Federation. So it's www.3af.org. We've been doing a lot of industry marketing conference, and it's really important we talk about K-pop Demon Hunter over and over. We keep our K culture. I think in reality, it's the best time to be Asian, owning your story. And I really think they will be a little bit more than what we can do. And if you want to be part of it, I love you to participate, join us. So www.3f.org. And of course, my agency I work for, if any of you guys interested in marketing, you also want to link in your identity. You care about how global Asian can impact and influence beyond the mainstream or pop culture. You check out our website, www.intertrend.com. Again, look it up if you're interested. There might be some job opening. We're looking for like-minded, brilliant talents to join the company too.
Thank you so much for sharing that. To our listeners, if you want to connect with Cheryl, you can also head on over to thetowofselfconfidence.com and search for Cheryl's name. Her show notes will pop up along with everything else that we talked about. And I really want to thank Cheryl today for taking the time to share her story and what she does for our community. I really love it. So thank you so much again, Cheryl, for being here today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And again, appreciate what you do here, Sheena, to really open up the dialogue, having the conversation, and allowing all of us to have a safe place, a great platform to connect and to learn.
Not a problem, Cheryl. Again, it was such an honor to have you on the show. And to our listeners, I just want to let you know this is actually the last episode for the season. And so be on the lookout for a brand new season on September 1st. 2026. And if you would like to check out past episodes, just go to Apple, Spotify, or YouTube to binge listen to all the amazing women who've been able to overcome their journey to confidence. So again, I'll see you in September and talk to you soon. Bye for now. You can now purchase Bridging the Confidence Gap, How Empowered Women Change the World on Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, Indigo, and other book retailers sold worldwide. Get your copy today. Thank you for tuning in to another amazing episode of the Tao of Self-Confidence. Please subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts or Spotify to get your daily boost of confidence.